Good afternoon, and welcome to The Way to Wow, People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and it's good to be here this afternoon. I hope you enjoy what I've got planned for today. It's a little bit different than some of the things we've talked about before, but I thought that well, you know, we just finished the Jewish fall holiday season, and I'm sure many of you are not Jewish. But, being a rabbi, I think about these things. And I thought I would bring a perspective that's really been the focus of the last 3 weeks to the world of professional success, to our job hunting, our business startups. And it's a subject I don't hear people talking about very much, if at all. There's a lot talk that you hear about. You have to have a positive mindset, and you have to have stick-to-itiveness. You have to be resourceful, and you have to have all these different things. And in various ways, that's all true. I mean, it's probably not a good idea to start a business thinking, well, I'm going to fail, right? Probably not the attitude to bring into a meeting to discuss a job. A lot of negativity. Most employers, probably all employers, they don't want to hear that. And just as a side note, I saw a friend of mine a few days ago who had embarked on a job hunt and was really absolutely committed to getting this new job. It was really going to change her life. There's some other things that are not relevant to this discussion. And she worked at it, and she worked at it. She hired a coach. She refined her tactics, and she got close many, many times, but never landed that job that she wanted. And she was telling me about it. And she told me that as a result, after about over a year, she just decided, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something else. And so she decided to pursue professionally something else, candidly, something that I think she is much, much better suited for. As we're talking, one of the things she says, I couldn't figure out why I wasn't successful in this job hunt. And yet this other professional direction that I've taken, which she had tried before and was not successful, all of a sudden she's successful at it. And I said to her, well, the job that you were looking to get was never you. And anyone who would get to know you would see this is not the right place for you to be. And so it wasn't that she was even exuding negativity, quite the contrary. I think she was very upbeat, very positive. She's a very engaging person. And yet, and she was going for, C-suite level positions. I think people at that level, they have insight that helps them cut through a lot of kind of fog in this process. And I'm sure, I know it was very hard for her to face those rejections. Nonetheless, I do think she's much better off for them. And the story has a point because it relates to the topic that I want to discuss today. So I promoted this episode as the one factor that people just seem to overlook in their job hunt, and it never gets talked about. And that factor is pain. So here in the United States, especially, and I think in the West generally, our lives tend to be geared around avoiding pain. We live in very wealthy societies. By the way, this is not political commentary. I think most of us would agree. We live in a wealthy society. That doesn't mean any particular individual is wealthy, but society overall, I think everybody would agree is. We live in a wealthy society, and much that surrounds us is geared toward reducing pain, increasing happiness, whatever that might mean, right? That's a whole nother discussion. And I think that oftentimes the avoidance of pain actually holds us back. So it's very rare that we make significant changes in ourselves, that we grow as a result of pleasure. Pleasure encourages us to stay where we're at so we can experience more pleasure. Pain necessitates our changing and hopefully growing in order to move to a new place that will be less painful. Okay? So I discuss this in my book. Where's my screen share here? I want to show a graphic from the book. I always forget to click share. Okay, here we go. It's coming up. There we go. Okay, so this was something I wrote not long after I injured myself running, and right now I'm not able to run at all, but at least I can walk. And the injury necessitated my changing what I was doing, and it was painful. I injured my Achilles tendon to the point where I couldn't even walk, let alone run. Right, so I had to lay off for a week and a half. I had to get custom orthotics. I had to get an MRI, and I prayed a lot, like, please, Lord, do not take away my favorite type of exercise. I did work through it. I had a great doctor who helped me out, and I got through it. And as a result, I was able to go on. And this was before I ran a marathon. So not only did I recover from this injury and move beyond the pain, I was able to, fulfill it wasn't so much a goal per se, but do this, running a marathon. I mean, not a lot of people run a marathon. By the way, I'm not going to run another one ever again. But I did that one. It was a worthwhile experience. So I think it behooves us to think about pain differently than we do. Pain it hurts. Of course it hurts. I'm not suggesting we should think that pain doesn't hurt. Yes, but pain is not a bad thing. It's not something that we should avoid, especially at all costs. Sometimes we should embrace pain because of what it'll do for our lives. So pain really gives us two choices, and you see them there on the screen. One is to push through it, and the other is to change course. And this is where it can be difficult, because how do we know in which direction the pain is telling us to go? Right? It's very, very hard to know. So I think we need to think about that, and I'm going to share some thoughts on this with you that perhaps will help you come to a conclusion for your own life. So first of all, now I can tell you for myself, my default is to push through pain. Right, this is how I ended up, injuring my Achilles tendon, because I'm out there running and I'm feeling some pain. It's like, no, I'm just gonna push through, keep going, and then I get to the point where I can't, even walk, let alone run. Right, so that was probably, the wrong decision to push through. But oftentimes, the right decision is to push through. Now, I would say this is more likely the case when we're talking about a relationship. Now, I have to give a caveat here. I am not talking about an abusive relationship. If you are involved with someone who is physically or emotionally beating you up, that is not, that pain that you are suffering is not an indication of pushing through it. Okay, that pain is an indication that you need to change course. Okay, now, by the way, changing course doesn't mean necessarily terminating the relationship. What it does mean is taking action to stop the pain, okay, as opposed to just going along with the pain and working through it and hoping that something will change in the future. No. If someone is physically or mentally abusing you, active steps need to be taken to get you out of that painful situation. It may mean the person has to, be put under a restraining order. It may mean that the relationship has to break up. It may mean that drastic a situation, but it may not. It may mean that the person needs to get psychiatric and psychological help and be absolutely committed to that, and maybe temporarily living apart until the person gets themselves under control, or something like that. So I'm not talking about a relationship that's at that point, okay? But for the fairly typical challenges that happen between two people, oftentimes the answer to the pain that causes is working through that and seeing where it might, where change and discussion and other things can build the relationship in a way that it is more mutually supportive than it was before. And by the way, even in a relationship, look, if you have an absolutely pain-free relationship, I wonder if that relationship is growing at all. Okay. One of the dangers of so-called pain-free relationships is people are so disconnected that they don't, there is no opportunity for, by the way, for pain or pleasure, right? They're just completely disconnected. And that's not a good thing. In fact, it's really not even a relationship. You may have had circumstances where in your own life, or maybe in your parents' life or something, two people are living together and there's, little or no dissension, there's little or no pain, or at least little or no pain expressed. And people are going along thinking, hey, things are great. And yet, when it turns out, there was no relationship there. And or there's some other relationship going on that that the one of the people doesn't know about, right? There's a betrayal going on or something like that. So pain-free in relationships, I would argue, is not the goal either. So there needs to be a balance, and the working through of pain oftentimes can dramatically strengthen relationships. So look, one of the worst pains, for example, a couple could ever experience would be, God forbid, the death of a child. And the pain from that tends to do one of two things. It either breaks the couple up, or it brings them much, much closer together than they were before. So, And that's not to say, obviously the death of a child is a good thing. Of course it's not. But the what can come out of the pain of that can be a more resilient, a stronger, more durable relationship. So in the professional world, so again, a pain-free professional life is probably a professional life where you are not meeting your potential. Now, by the way, you may say, I don't care. I don't, as long as I can go to work, do my whatever, 40 hours a week, make the money I want to make, and go home and do my other stuff, that's fine. Okay, look, that's part of your definition of success. До свидания, as they say. I probably shouldn't use Russian, expressions, but anyway, go with God, as they say. But if professional growth, if greater professional success is your aim, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to accomplish that pain-free. You're going to have to push through some pain. Okay? And that pain may come from taking on a challenge that is, greater than you think you might be able to handle, and sort of getting your hands around new abilities, new skills, absorbing new experiences. All of that can be very painful, especially really more emotionally painful, hopefully not physically painful, although that can happen too, of course. And emotional pain can manifest itself in physical pain too, right? I mean, how many of you have, backache problems? But when the mental stress gets really, really high for me, I start feeling it in the small of my back. That's how I know, okay, something's got to change here. Okay, or I'm under much more mental stress than I thought I was, and now I've got to examine, okay, I'm in a state of pain. What does this mean? Where is this coming from? Where do I need to grow in order to resolve that pain and get to a place where I'm better able to deal with the more stressful circumstances? So all of that is part and parcel of greater professional success. And it can apply whether you're an employee working for an organization or whether you're working for your own business. I will say that if you have your own company, you almost for sure will not be successful if avoiding pain is part of your business plan. Okay? I just don't know how it can possibly be, especially if it's a newer business, because you've got to build it. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of growth. You're going to be making mistakes. You need to learn from those mistakes. All of that is painful. Okay. And if you can accept the pain that comes with it, you will be much more successful, much more quickly, okay, than trying to avoid it all. Now, hopefully you'll build the business to the point where, I don't know, you can hire some professional managers, they can take over all of that. You still have your ownership in the business and you don't have to engage with it every day. I don't know, maybe that's your goal. I would like to get to that point, by the way. I think that would be terrific. But that's not the early stage of a business by any stretch of the imagination. And by the way, even if you've attained a pain-free business life or a relatively pain-free business life, hopefully that's not going to be true of all the rest of your life. So committing to what you're doing it requires you to push through. Many, many times in professional life, that's what it takes. And that's really, that's why I said the story I was telling earlier about my friend. That's where I think she did the right thing. Okay, she got to the finals and she was one of two and she didn't get that one. Okay, it was disappointing. I know it was. But she moved on to the next one and she moved on to the next one and she kept a positive outlook and a positive attitude. That was absolutely what she needed to do at that time in her life, in that phase of her professional journey. Okay, so I don't want to imply that she should never have embarked on that. I think her current success in a completely different area is at least in part, perhaps largely in part, of her experiencing the pain of this job hunt and sticking with it, because it taught her, she had to learn something from that. And I think what she learned from it is, this is not for me. Okay. And that's the second choice we have when we're experiencing pain. It may require a change of course. Okay. And that's perfectly valid. Now, here's something that I'm working on my daughter with. So, like, she's a teenager. Life as a teenager is tough. Countless people have told me to be a female freshman in high school is one of the most difficult things to be. I'll take it on faith. I was never a female high school freshman, so I can't speak from personal experience. I was a freshman at some point. I don't know. My recollection is it wasn't so tough, but maybe I'm remembering it better than it was. But it's been tough on her, and I think she's struggling at times. And look, as her father, of course, that it makes me feel bad. I wish I could relieve her of her struggles. But I realize that it is through those struggles that she will grow, and she needs to grow. So to give you an example, she is a huge fan of Dungeons and Dragons. She has books on it that she's read. I mean, in long books. I started reading one of them. It's like, wow, this is really intense stuff here. And she knows so much about it. What she didn't have was practical experience playing the game. And she tried to put a game together herself, but she just didn't have the experience to make it successful. Okay. By the way, good for her trying to put it together. And I told her, I thought that was very admirable. Shows a lot of, self-starting and all of that. Right. So it just so happened I met someone a few months ago. We became friends. And he and his wife are big time Dungeons and Dragons fans, players, whatever. And over the preceding several years, he had learned to be a game master, I guess it's called. So I was telling him how interested my daughter was. He said, would she be interested in my putting a game together for her so she could learn? I said, I think so. Let me, get her on a call, the three of us. And sure enough, she was so excited, over the top excited about this opportunity to play with someone who knew that she was going to be learning how to play. It was really an ideal situation for her. So she came to me not too long ago. I think last week, I believe it was, right? Yeah, it would have been last week. And she said, Daddy, do you think the fellow who put the game together would be upset if I quit? And that's gotten like silence. I honestly, I was very surprised. And I'm like, why would you want to quit? You love Dungeons and Dragons. And she said, I'm not any good at it. And I think the other players in the game, they're annoyed by having to play with me because I'm not very good at it. And so Now, by the way, I don't know exactly what feedback she had gotten last time she had played. Knowing the people involved, I was, skeptical that they had expressed anything like that to her directly. So I think this was something she was kind of feeling from inside. We all get that, right? We get this sense like, I can't do this, and since I don't feel good about how I'm performing in this arena, other people must be picking up on it, and they're not pleased to be involved with me, right? It becomes a whole sort of thing that spins out of control for us. So, I said to her, baby, I would talk to the game master about how you're feeling and get his thoughts, because I said, knowing him as I do, I think it's extremely unlikely that he's not enjoying playing with you, number one. And number two, I would bet he's worked with other players who felt the same way that you do and helped them get beyond that, grow in their ability to play Dungeons and Dragons, and it became even more enjoyable for them. So and so, she, I think, frankly, somewhat begrudgingly said she would. I don't know if she has. I'm interested to follow up with her on that soon. In her case, I think she was too quick to change course, right? She had much more to gain through sticking it out, through pushing through it, than she did through changing course. Right now, by the way, let me also say it's her life. I would never have told her you may not stop playing. No, that's not my place to do that. I mean, I'm her father, but it's her life. And for me to insist that she stay in a state of pain, if you will, emotional pain over this, that I don't feel is the right thing for me to do. What is my job as a parent is to ask her the questions and share with her the thoughts that she may not be considering, in order that she can make a more informed decision for herself, right? And by the way, I think that's largely true in the professional world as well. If we have an employee, someone or a colleague, forget employee, a colleague, and that colleague is experiencing some pain, maybe they're thinking about quitting the company. Well, so I think the tendency, especially if we're their supervisor, is to kind of assess, well, do I want this person to stay or not, and then use their pain in order to get what we want out of the situation. And I think that's frankly a pretty selfish way for a supervisor to handle things. So I think when we have a colleague who's experiencing pain, self-doubt, or anxiety over the size of a project or something like that, our responsibility is to help them figure out, why am I feeling this way? What would need to happen in order for me to grow and or change so that I don't feel this way in the future, whether it's here at this company or whether it is at another company. That's our responsibility as leaders, always. Now, one of the places I learned that was in the military, because for the most part in the military, if you've got a colleague who doesn't like being in the military, they don't have the opportunity to just leave. If they're enlisted, so they have a term of enlistment, for them to leave before that term is up, at best has some very negative consequences for them. And even for an officer who serves at the pleasure of the president, the commander-in-chief, still an officer has to go through the resignation process. And while in general, if an officer resigns, that resignation will be accepted, it doesn't have to be accepted, right? And the officer's superiors do not have to recommend that it be accepted. Okay, so people in the military, they're kind of stuck there, especially in the short term. So it's not a possibility to say, well, I think you better move on. That's generally speaking not the case. So the challenge really is to help this person grow professionally so that they can stick it out, they can push through it. Now, by the way, there are combinations of these things in the professional world, especially if you work for a large organization and or you have your own business. So you may be experiencing some difficulties in your business, or for the company, for the organization you're working for, that are really causing you a problem. and yet you feel like, I don't want to close my business, I don't want to leave this company, but I just don't know what to do. So maybe you can change course within your own company, or with your own company, and or within the organization. So, if you're in some kind of administrative role, and you're experiencing a lot of pain over finances, right? Maybe you have an opportunity to get into a different role within the company that will give you greater income earning potential. Maybe you'll get into sales or something like that. And so in essence, you're pushing through, but you're also changing course at the same time. And indeed, of course, you could argue any change of course is part of the process of pushing through. And that's true. Within the professional realm, though, we may not have like in a small company, they may not have the ability to have you do something else. The opportunity just may not be there. And so changing course means leaving the company, which is a major, leaving the organization, which may be a major disruption, not only in your own life, but in the running of the organization as well. So it may be there that pushing through really necessitates that you push through in your existing position, or something, something like that. Now, in your own business, this is one of the key questions you'll be needing to assess periodically. And that is, if I'm bumping up against what seems like a barrier in my business that I'm not getting through, do I just need to keep, batting away, pushing away at it like that? What is the song? High hopes, the ram is hitting the dam, right? And he's not making any progress, but he has high hopes, right? Well, so hopefully you're not in that situation where you keep bucking that dam, but you can't get through, right? And it's just purely high hopes. With your own business, you need to be strategic. Is the direction I'm going in going to be the direction of success? And I will tell you, for example, in my real estate business, the reason I eventually became successful was because I shifted directions a couple of times. Fairly significant changes of directions. And that's really what in the end made the difference for me. I was willing to exercise that kind of flexibility. At the same time, I pushed through, I stuck with my business, perhaps longer than I should have. That's a separate issue. But nonetheless, I did. And I got to the point where I was successful. So the main point of all this, and I'm plan to do a shorter show today than I normally do, because I just wanted to focus on this one idea, is that pain is not necessarily a bad thing. Pain is an indication that we need to wake up, become more aware, and probably are poised on the point of the need to grow. Okay. And so, as you're pursuing your professional goals, whether it's a job hunt, whether you're already in a job, but you're looking to advance yourself either within your organization or by going somewhere else, whether you have your own business or you're planning on starting a business, don't avoid the pain. Short term, you may feel like you're gaining something, but long term, almost for sure, you're losing out. Now, you may say, well, wait, sometimes I'm just so overwhelmed, I couldn't possibly embrace pain at that point. Okay, I understand. Of course, these are not hard and fast rules. You need to look at, where you're at holistically. What I'm saying is, don't make pain avoidance your long-term goal. Sometimes you need to avoid pain in the short term in order to get through something else. Maybe you have pain in another area of your life, and so to have it in your professional life too is just not going to work. Gotcha. I'm there. I've been there. Having said that, look for opportunities to grow, which means you're basically going to be looking for painful opportunities, right? Because growth comes through pain, right? And think about It's kind of this one last sort of metaphor, I think it is, for growth. You know, sometimes a child will have a growing spurt and they'll feel achy because their body is literally growing so fast that their muscles and tendons and such are aching with the growth. And it's painful. It's painful, of course it is. And you know, the child needs comfort. My question would be, though, if you had your choice, would you stop the child from growing? Would you stop the child from becoming the person that the child can be, whatever that is, height and etc.? Probably not, right? So as difficult as the pain is, the growth long term is good for the child, and it's good for us too. So I put together this picture here that you see on the screen. It's a little slide. It's kind of a prayer, and you see here at the bottom, it's just a little bit cut off. Here, let's see if I can get the whole thing right. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'll read it here. Of course, you can read. I know that. God grant me pain that I may grow, and the wisdom to know when I should push through it and when I should change course. That's my prayer. I would like to tell you that I always pray that, and I don't always pray it. You know, candidly, one of the reasons why I'm doing this show today is there's as a reminder to myself that I need to do this, that I shouldn't make my life purely about avoiding pain or you know, finding pleasure. That's not a healthy, it's no healthier for me than it is for anybody else. So, you know, I want to, you know, kind of jump in the, you know, the water here with you. And so what I recommended, you see at the bottom, is take a photo of this image with your cell phone, so you'll always have it with you when you need it. And you can, and when life is tough, pull it out. You know, when you see this you know, football player, you know, soccer here in the US, right? Of course, he's obviously in pain. So the question, I don't know who he is, to be honest, but I bet if we asked him and said, would you rather have avoided this pain, or would you rather be in this match trying to win? And I suspect he would say he'd rather be in this match trying to win. That pain is a part of sports. It's something every athlete who wants to accomplish things has to endure. And just like we've been talking about in relationships, in professional life, the question in sports too is, do I push through the pain or do I change course, right? Just as a great movie, North Dallas 40, that's one of the central questions to that movie. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Mac Davis and Nick Nolte, from the 80s, I believe. If you're interested in this issue of, you know, embracing pain for the growth that it can give us, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you watch that movie. It's a wonderful investigation of this question. So, you know, what I'll do is I'll post a link to where I have this picture on my website. How about that? And that way, if you want to be able to take a picture of it, you can. And maybe this little prayer will be helpful to you, not just in your professional life, although hopefully there, but maybe in other areas of your life. And by the way, I wouldn't wish relationship pain on you. On the other hand, I would recommend that if you've got a relationship where there's absolutely zero conflict and it's been that way for a long, long time, I would recommend to you that you examine that relationship. Is it really as strong and enduring as you think it is? Or have you gotten to a place where you're really not seeing that there are, festering problems, and they just haven't been addressed. So God, grant me the pain that I may grow, and the wisdom to know when I should push through it and when I should change course. So that's what I have for you this week. We're ending a little bit short, so you got a little bit of extra time, maybe to contemplate these ideas, or if you have a question, of course, I'm always available to respond to your questions. My email address will be on the YouTube posting of this episode. As always, feel free to reach out to me if there's a topic that you'd like to see addressed. By all means, let me know about that as well, and I'd be happy to do so. So that's all I have for this week. Look forward to seeing you next week, as I do every Wednesday. Especially now that the holidays are over, there shouldn't be interruptions hopefully for quite some time. And so 12:30 p.m. on the West Coast, 3:30 p.m. on the East Coast, an hour in for Mountain and Central Time, not to give them short shrift. And that just leaves me to say, a friend of mine who helped me grow tremendously, and it was partly through the sharing of pain, and I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so close to her, is we, both of us, I think, grew through the sharing of that pain. And so, Marie, darling, you are and ever will be my Belle. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.